Wishes everyone a happy story. On the way to file for a fake divorce with Jin Qingma, I received an email from 15 years ago at a pre-scheduled time. Sunyanan, are we married yet? Does the child like to laugh like you? Are we rich yet? Have we bought a house with a large balcony in Jiang? If I were to die now, the biggest regret of 20-year-old Jin Qingma would be not teaching you how to fix a toilet. The most amazing thing is that even though he had 2 broken ribs, he was still able to pull me out of the rubble of the earthquake. If Jin Changmo treats me badly in 15 years, remember to beat him up for me. Written after the May 2010 earthquake. And another email showed that last month, Jin Changmo had just bought a diamond ring. The invoice was 28,000 yuan. The person who signed it was a woman. I knew, even though he had loved me like his life, our fake divorce was about to become real. I asked about the house in the school area of Dongqing Experimental Elementary School. The initial payment is not a problem. When the time comes you take Dang Dang to the interview, I will ask the teacher in the admissions office. Jin Changmo looked at the house buying app on his phone while driving. His tone was very certain, as if the divorce was just a technical issue that we needed to solve together. Besides, if Dang Dang wanted to compete for a place in school in the future, he had a project that could be put on his son's name. His senior was a judge in an elementary school science competition. He was still dancing beside me about the restrictions on buying a house after divorce, the direction of the house, the style of decoration. His voice was like a glass, vague, tattooed. I stared at the phone screen, not listening to a word. The 2 emails kept going back and forth. An email from 15 years ago, you wrote, promising to be peaceful. Do you also like to laugh like me? An email from 15 years later was a receipt from you buying a diamond ring for someone else with the name Tong spelled out. Suddenly I thought of a sentence after 30 years old. There is nothing worth being sad about or suffering enough to cry about. Everything is just fragments, dense, painful. Like now. Like he was seriously planning for his daughter's future, completely oblivious to my absent-mindedness. Like his phone suddenly rang. An emergency call from the lab. He frowned and answered the phone. His tone immediately changed to that of a professor. Calm and trustworthy, unusual data. I'll be there soon. He quickly turned the car around, dropped me off on the side of the road, not forgetting to turn back and give me some instructions before leaving. Sorry, Anan, this situation is really urgent. Let's go to the civil affairs office another day. Oh right, remember to photocopy Dang Dang's vaccination record. It's required when registering for school. Near usually wears driving in the blink of an eye. I immediately open the browser to search for the main issues in the custody case. I think of the parent-teacher conference last month and he is dizzy. When Dang Dang drew the family portrait, his father's face was left as a support. I opened the divorce agreement we had prepared in advance, deleting every word in the joint custody clause. Kinthua and I were the representatives of poor village students. It only takes 5 minutes to get to Jiangnan University, but it took him and me 12 years. In 2010 there was an earthquake in Jiangdu. Within minutes of the ceiling collapsing, he rushed over and used his body to protect me. In the rubble he broke 2 ribs, blood flowed from his head down his chin, and onto my face. He smiled and promised to be at peace if I died. Who would he argue with? Later, in the makeshift tent, he put the ring on my finger, waiting for us to have money to exchange it for a diamond ring for you. At that time there was light in the eyes of the near 1,000-year-old, and sweat on the palms of his hands. Even his breathing carried the recklessness and confidence typical of a teenager. My last mock trial before graduating with a master's degree. At that time, the near 1,000-year-old had just finished his doctoral thesis. He said, "Promise me don't be so fierce in court next time, okay? Just now you scared the senior on the stand so much that his hands trembled." He smiled, holding an ice cream stick in his mouth and mumbling. He pushed the law firm's internship offer in front of me. "If you really become a lawyer, I will come pick you up at the law firm's door every day." Once he was in the lab for 36 hours straight. He carried a pile of data from school to the door of our rented room, went back to sleep, still clutching the cup of milk tea he brought back for me. On the cup was a note to the future great lawyer. "That day you had a fever and were delirious. If only I could stay home every day. That way, when you came home from your experiments at night, you could see me. I caressed your sleeping face and began to look forward to our married life." At that time his work was developing continuously, and the projects were just starting. He was so busy that he suffered from gastric hemorrhage due to irregular work and rest. In a moment of emotion, I turned down the offer from the law firm and decided to stay home and work as a full-time writer, conveniently taking care of his daily life. In 2022, Kinthua Mak was promoted to associate professor, and the school also gave him an apartment as an exception because of his talent. He took me to see the house, stood on the balcony and put his arm around my shoulder. He said, "I promise to be safe, we will finally get through it." At that time, I thought that after all hardship comes happiness. It wasn't until last month that Kinthua Mak started to rarely come home on time. He sat at the dining table, excitedly telling me about the new graduate students entering this year. Tong Ghi Na's grandfather was an academician, with a key national project. Her father was the dean of the School of Economics and Management at Jiangnan University, and her mother was a senior executive at a state-owned enterprise. He picked up a piece of food, and there was a light in his eyes that I hadn't seen in a long time. It wasn't pure teenage ambition, but deep admiration that came from the heart. You know, she published 2 papers in SCI when she was a student, all under the name of her grandfather's lab. She didn't even have to stay up all night running data, didn't have to talk nonsense to ask for collaboration, didn't have to be made difficult by the reviewers. He shook his head as if mocking himself, but also as if he was unwilling. It took him more than 10 years to become an associate professor, and she only needed his last name. Now he could imagine her future. A talented graduate being introduced to universities, becoming a young talent, receiving 3 times more research funding than his, and easily sitting in a management position. I looked at him, remembering many years ago, every day Jin Cheng-mo stayed in the lab until 3 a.m. He often broke his keyboard because of abnormal data. I asked him why did she choose him as her instructor. Jin Cheng-mo paused, the corners of his mouth curved up. His voice became softer. She said she had read his thesis. The youngest associate professor in the Electronic Information Department of Jiangnan University, a rising star in the field of artificial intelligence. She said she liked his research direction. I suddenly realized that the pride of the late professor was never simply an academic ideal, but a lifelong commitment from the bones of poor village students. I tried my best to get what others were born with. And now, Song Kaya's appearance made him feel for the first time that I actually had the privilege of choice. That day, he rarely did not return to school but sat at his desk, flipping through Song Kaya's resume over and over again. I stood at the door, watching his fingertips hover over the paper, as if he were gliding over some shortcut he could reach. Suddenly he spoke, his voice soft, promising to be happy if he had that many resources that year. He didn't finish, but I knew what he wanted to say. If he had such resources back then, he wouldn't have buried himself in the lab until he had a stomach bleed. He wouldn't have had to be so timid and beg for the title of associate professor. I understand the weaknesses of human nature, but the near miss in front of me still makes me feel strange. He could use his body to support the collapsing house. The next day, the research team held a celebration party at a hotel near the university. Jin Cheng made an exception and invited me along. Today, the article was accepted by a leading journal. The general office said that it was mandatory to invite her, the teacher's wife. When he tied his tie and sprayed on perfume, he sometimes took this as a birthday present I gave him last month. The elegant general sitting on the right of the judge was wearing a black dress, pearl earrings, and light pink nails. She leaned slightly, her fingertips resting on the cuff of the judge's shirt. Her voice was sweet enough. "Teacher, this grilled beef dish is your favorite, I remember it." She picked up a piece, dipped it in sauce, and gently placed it on the plate in front of him. He nodded. "You're so thoughtful." I stared at the piece of beef. I remembered last month when he came home for dinner, I cooked his favorite braised pork ribs. He only ate 2 bites, saying he had a bad stomach lately and didn't eat greasy food. It turns out that it's not that I don't eat greasy food, I just don't eat the food I cook. The celebration party was over. Tong Ghi Na picked up a glass of wine and drank it all. The acceptance of this article was entirely based on the doctor. If the teacher hadn't stayed up all night to help me fix the algorithm, the data wouldn't have been able to run. Without the teacher, I wouldn't be here today. Kinthua waved his hand, sipped his wine, and wanted to say that he would still thank his family for providing computer resources at the crucial moment. Using another supercomputer center, remember that year we lined up in the computer room waiting for the GPU, don't know how to endure. Teacher, the male student across the street suddenly spoke up, curiously asking me, do you usually write at home quite comfortably? Unlike us, every day tortured by data until bald. Before I could answer, Song Chia chuckled, turned his head to look at Jin Chung-mo. Writing is really good, free and easy, there are no mandatory standards, anyone can write. There is no need to be like us, being chased by deadlines every day. Teacher, do you think it is true? Kinthua Mak glanced at me, his eyes complicated. In the end he just said softly, it is true that writing really does not have many rules. I squeezed the glass in my hand, the ice soaked into my palm, my whole body was cold. Song Jie Na seemed to feel the delicate atmosphere, so he smiled. Don't mind me, the teacher is very strict. He had to correct each of my punctuation marks 3 times. I went to the toilet, I stood up and left. The cold wind in the hallway hit my face, blowing away the burning feeling on my face. In the mirror my face was pale, my lipstick was smeared. There were footsteps behind me. Kinthua followed me out and don't think too much, Jichai Na is just my student. I looked straight into his eyes. Student? Have you ever seen a student with such a lack of sense of boundaries? My voice became softer, I didn't say anything more. The name Jichai Na jumped on the table, Kinthua's cell phone. The message function is displayed clearly. Just received the message, my grandfather said this project can be submitted for the Science and Technology Progress Award. Do you want to be the first to complete it? Kinthua Mak glanced at it, turned off the screen, turned back. Everyone is waiting. I stood still. He waited for a few seconds, saw me standing still inside. Then you rest first, I'll go back and deal with it for a while. He turned away. I called my college roommate, Tan Hugh. After 7 years, Tan Hugh is now a partner at the largest law firm in Jiangsu. Completely different from her simple image when she was in school. Now she has short hair, ear length, and her office attire makes her look very professional. The way she holds her coffee cup is no less lovely. I looked at Tan Hugh, absent-minded. If I hadn't rejected the company's job offer that year, would I be as bright as her now? Tan Hugh threw a sugar cube into the coffee cup. Taking his child to extracurricular activities on weekends and giving gifts on holidays, the judge really likes this image of a model father. She looked at the news not long ago. The judge was wearing a long-sleeved shirt and was flying a kite in the schoolyard. The youngest professor at Jiangnan University, perfectly balancing scientific research and raising children. I pushed my phone to the middle of the table. Text message history, receipt for the diamond ring, and even the intimate act between the two of them that I had just taken. Tan Zhao's fingernails slid across the screen. This intimate act did not constitute evidence of adultery. The receipt for the diamond ring was not direct evidence either. There was no way he had left home empty-handed. Tan Zhao took out his iPad and opened the child custody case website. In the past 3 years, 91% of full-time housewives in this city lost their lawsuits. 9% lost their lawsuits, and the rest won their lawsuits with either their parents' assets or a stable income. Do you know what a housewife is called in court? It's called unemployed. Even if your royalties are 10,000 yuan a month, as long as you don't have a social security record, you're still unemployed. Finally, she pushed over a note. If you really want a divorce, keep all the pin lines you bought at the market. Prove that you have contributed to the daily care of the children. Want to win custody? Ho, very ho. I clenched the file in my bag. If I have evidence of Kinthua Mak's academic cheating, can I ask him to compromise on custody? After talking to Tan Zhao, her words kept ringing in my ears. Really want to tear each other apart. On the way back, I received a text message from Tan Zhao. Actually, in the bar exam that year, he was 20 points higher than me. 11:30. Dang Dang was already asleep. I stuffed spare clothes, water bottle, sunscreen, and band-aids into my son's school bag, preparing for tomorrow's sports meet. He was nearly overweight and came in, carrying an exquisite paper bag with the logo of a famous bakery in the south of the city printed on it. The shop was more than 10 kilometers away. A 40-minute drive away. Still not asleep? Here's some tiramisu for you. You said you wanted some last time, he said softly, placing the paper bag on the table. Tomorrow is Dang Dang Sports Festival, do you remember? I asked calmly. I'm so proud of you, I'll miss you tomorrow. Oh right. But I have an academic conference in the meantime organized by Grandpa Tong, and everyone from the Department of Education is here. I smiled, lowered my head and continued to tie the thick rope. Okay, you go. He let out a soft breath, wanting to come and stroke my hair. Sorry, I'll do it next time. I looked up at him. There won't be a next time. Close up, let's get a divorce. He was stunned, his hands were not in the same place. What? I put down Dang Dang's sneakers and stood up. It wasn't a fake divorce, it was real. He seemed to not understand, his eyebrows raised. Just because he couldn't go to the sports festival tomorrow? Or is it because Song Chia casually said a few words last time? Sunyanin, when did you become so petty? I took a deep breath, suddenly smelling a faint scent of perfume on his collar. The pungent citrus scent. Exactly like the scent on Song Chia that I had smelled at the party. I stared into his eyes, looking closely at his face. Do you know how long Dang Dang has been practicing for the three-legged race tomorrow? Do you know that every night before going to sleep, the little girl asks if her dad is coming? Do you know that when I draw a family photo, your face is left blank? Your face changed but quickly returned to normal. You are out there earning money to support the family. Isn't it right for me to take care of my daughter? Just because you didn't participate this time, I want a divorce. I understand his job, and I'm grateful for his contributions to this family. Normally I can tolerate it. But today I can't bring up the past. One time Dang Dang had a fever of 39 degrees. He celebrated his boss's birthday. He promised to take Dang Dang to Disneyland, but at the last minute let him go. On our 15th anniversary, he helped Tong take notes and correct the data. He suddenly grabbed my wrist. The force was so strong that it hurt. Huan Yinan, do you know how many hours a day my students and I spend in the lab? Do you know that I go with the leaders, stay with the big guys to get more projects to earn more money? Don't you want to be like me? Every day at home I can take care of the children, cook, and that's it. Without me, can you live in this apartment? Can Dang Dang go to Dongtan Elementary School? Every day I'm tired like a dog and still have to think about making you happy. What about me? What can I do besides being suspicious? I looked at the accusing look on the deputy's face, tears falling uncontrollably. He opened his mouth to gasp, suddenly out of breath. Don't cry. I'm tired, we'll talk tomorrow. I stood still, listening to the sound of running water in the bathroom. In the blink of an eye, I no longer had the strength to return to my room. This scene was like a mirror, reflecting the impatience in his eyes, and also reflecting the cowardice from the depths of my misery. The near miss taught me a lesson. Love will be obscured by the wrinkles of time. Promises will also be eroded by day reluctance. The next morning, I held his hand and walked into the kindergarten's gym. He was still looking towards the school gate. Mom, is Dad really not coming? I sat down and adjusted his collar. Dang Dang, if Dad is like this often in the future, will he be sad? He tilted his head and thought for a moment, then seriously replied, yes, he is sad. But Mom said you can cry when you're sad, but after crying you have to keep running. I jumped down from the chair, pulled my hand. Mom, let's run a three-legged race. I looked at Dang Dang's smile. She was not weak when facing the cruelty of this world. Children deserve true companionship rather than false fulfillment. Before the sports meet began, I sat in the parents' area. Scrolling through my phone, distracted, the video platform pushed a local academic news. A young scholar from Jiangnan University talked about a new breakthrough in artificial intelligence. Live broadcast, Kanthua was wearing a neat suit, Tong Kai Na was wearing a white dress sitting next to her. She smiled sweetly. Actually, the success of this project should be especially thanks to Teacher Kan. She tilted her head, her hair falling onto Kanthua's shoulders. The teacher really worked hard, often correcting my papers all night. Sometimes I felt embarrassed. The hand that was almost too fat was placed naturally behind her chair, in front of the ring finger reflecting under the light. The comments were heated. This student's tone was problematic. The professor's eyes looking at her were definitely not simple. Teacher and student working together, wonderful. According to the comments, I found Tong Jiachaina's account. In her most recent video, she makes a heart shape with the camera. The setting is a sofa bed in a nearly overdressed office. The caption accompanying the video rewards her for working all night. I expressionlessly saved the video, conveniently taking a few photos of the two of us making eye contact during the broadcast. At the end of the week, I placed the divorce agreement in front of the old man. He was correcting his student's thesis. He raised his eyebrows and scanned the file. His first reaction was to open the calendar. Today was not our appointment day. Seeing that I didn't react, he stopped and looked at the bold part of the agreement again. His voice was calm, like he was reading an academic paper. You can't get custody of the child. The court will consider the parent's financial ability, educational background, and desire to raise their children. In terms of financial ability, your after-tax income last year was 500,000 yuan, and you have the right to permanent residence in a talent apartment. Your writing income is from a large company, about 120,000 yuan per year, and you have no fixed assets. Pausing for a moment, he continued. Regarding educational resources, he could ensure that Dang Dang would be admitted to Dongtan Primary School, while she did not have any resources in this regard. Regarding the desire to raise children, he attended every important health checkup for Dang Dang on time, and without a daughter, he gave up his career to focus on his family. But today, for the first time, I doubted my choice that year. Looking closely, do you now see girls as data to analyze like scientific reports? He took off his glasses, rubbed his eyebrows, and only used a method I could understand to communicate. I know very well that Dang Dang can develop better if she follows someone. I filed for divorce because, first, I mentioned Tong Jiechai 5 times and 7 times. I was jealous that you spent time guiding her in her work. Second, I wanted to file for divorce so you would pay attention to me. Third, I knew subconsciously that without you, I absolutely could not maintain my current standard of living. Okay, and then I admit that I have neglected you and Dang Dang this time. After finishing this project, I will find my senior and ask for a VIP ticket to Disneyland for you and your mother to enjoy. We will do the procedure on the next appointment date. Half a year later, he paid the first deposit, just in time for Dang Dang to enter elementary school. Outside the window, thunder rumbled, and rain began to pound against the glass. Not knowing when, Can Thursday Mac began to bring his work style home. Turn off one, then draw another pie. He is 100% sure that I asked for a divorce because I was angry. Professor Ken, your analysis left out 3 variables. First, he forgot to value mother-child affection. Second, he underestimated my ability to survive. Third, he overestimated his irreplaceable position in his daughter's heart. I clicked on the screenshot of the live broadcast saved on my phone. Song Gaea was leaning her head on his shoulder. It was a blurry photo of him and his student. Can Thursday Mac's hand holding the pen suddenly stiffened. He swore that there was no real relationship between them. If he really admitted it, she reminded him of her when he was 20 years old. But this does not affect the feelings in our lives. Can Thursday Mac, as usual, admitted his thoughts. Only then did I realize that the distance between us was an entire youth. He was still living in the moonlight of his 20s, and I standing alone in the rain and wind of my 30s. Outside, the rain was getting heavier. I stood up and walked to the door, preparing to pick up Dang Dang after his piano class. Continue your academic argument. Unfortunately, emotions are not a research topic. I held an umbrella, standing downstairs in the piano classroom waiting for Dang Dang. From afar, I saw the child holding a cage running towards me, waving excitedly at me. Mom, look, this is the kitten that Song Jiechai gave me. I sat down. She kept her voice calm. Did Dad know? Dang Dang nodded. Yes, I know. Song Jiechai asked Dad before. Dad said you can keep it, just put it in my room. I am allergic to cat hair. Can Thuong Mac knows. He knows better than anyone. 3 years ago, Dang Dang was fascinated by a kitten in a pet store. I coaxed my child to get a cat when I get over my allergies. At that time, Can Thuong Mac stood to one side, his voice stern. Dang Dang, Mom is sick, we can't get a cat. But now he tacitly agreed. Without my knowledge, Song Kaya was able to interfere in our family at will. He even decided our daily life. Dang Dang saw that my expression was not right, so he spoke cautiously. Mom, Sister Tong Jiechai said this cat is very obedient. It won't let you get wet. Cars drove by quickly, rainwater splashed on my legs, the cold seeped into my eyes. Dang Dang, cat or Mom, I choose one. Dang Dang hugged the cat and stepped back, tears falling onto the cat cage. Why did he have to choose? Sister Jiechai said that Dad had to be in the lab doing scientific research every day. But Mom refused to keep just a cat. Last month, Dad stayed up all night doing research, saying he would change the future of humanity. But my mother only told me to wash my hands and eat. Teacher Truong also said, we must understand the hardship and greatness of our father. If you write an essay about your father, you can write that he wins a prize. Standing on the big stage, the whole class applauded. But when I write about you, I can only write about you braiding my hair every day. After the conversation at the last sports festival, I always thought that girls need real companions. Now I realize in my daughter's eyes, Dad absent from the meeting is a great dad. Mom here is a normal mom. Taking my daughter home, I left a sentence, waiting for Dad and daughter to research a vaccine against cat hair allergy, and then come pick Mom up. I turned around and went to the hotel alone. The mobile screen lit up. Sunyenin, have you had enough? How old are you to run away from home? I ignored him and continued to flip through the recruitment notices of law firms. An hour later, messages from the deputy director kept popping up. I asked about this cat before it was sent there. It's a hypoallergenic, low shedding, no problem. Dang dang misses you. I closed the chat box, took out my computer and started typing. The next day I received several interview notices. The interviewer looked at the resume I prepared last night and asked. She promised she had 7 years of resistance not practicing law. Why come back now? I had prepared an answer for this problem. Yes, I switched to full-time author but always pay attention to changes in the law. Back for family reasons. He chuckled. What are the provisions for the new right of residence added in the revised civil law? I answered fluently. He suddenly interrupted me. How old is your child this year? 5 years old, in kindergarten. He closed his resume. We often work overtime. If your child suddenly has a fever, you choose to go to court or to the hospital. I clenched my pen. I would sort it out first. He opened his phone album. All of them were photos of men. This was the one I took last week at 2 a.m. The only female colleague quit last month because her mother-in-law said if she continued to work overtime, she would have to divorce. Walking out of the law office, I felt depressed for the first time. The supervisor sent a video. Dang Dang sat at the piano and played a new song. Halfway through, he stopped and looked into the camera lens, asking, "When will you come home, Mom?" My finger hovered over the screen, almost touching the answer button. Then the shadow of the ragdoll cat flashed across the screen. I hung up the phone and continued with the next interview. The other party's eyes lit up after asking about my family situation. Her husband is a professor at Jiangnan University. What a coincidence. We have a project we want to cooperate with the university. You are in charge of connecting with your husband's school. Seeing my expression change, he quickly corrected me. Don't misunderstand. I'm just using your connections. I stood up. Why don't you ask me directly if I can use my marital relationship to exchange for case resources? He actually nodded, telling her the truth. Our office's female partners were all promoted this way. If her husband could introduce a partnership, the issue of children would be easier to negotiate. Hotel bathroom, steam fogging the glass. In my head, I replayed the discussion in the tea room of the place where I was interviewed. That girl who promised to eat dared to ask for a salary of 10,000 a month. Wasn't her husband a professor at Jiangnan University? It would be easy to find her a light job. She hasn't handled a case in 7 years, and the court system probably doesn't even know how to function. I stared at the pale face in the mirror, her eyes dark and puffy, looking exactly like the housewife who had withdrawn from society in the eyes of the interviewer. The mobile phone lit up. A message from Qin Xiao arrived. Don't listen to that bunch of old-fashioned people farting. I just asked our partner. He has a friend who is hiring a legal editor. No need to work in the office. I thanked Qin Xiao and continued writing the new chapter of the novel. At 3 a.m., the computer screen reflected light onto my face. My cell phone lit up again. Tomorrow he is attending an education summit. How to use the iron. What is the password to pick up Dang Dang's martial arts class? Where is the girl's medicine? One message after another. He became more and more impatient. Finally he called directly. I looked at the screen. The 3 words Nianchima flashed. I remembered the first time he took Dang Dang to the park alone. He didn't even know how to fasten a child seat belt, and he was so worried that he called me more than 10 times. I found it funny then, but now I feel sad. Before we got married, he was worried that I wouldn't know how to fix a toilet, fix a light bulb, or do everything. After we got married, he didn't know how to do the most basic housework because he knew I was always there. But because of that, he was considered a genius by the academic world. As for me, I had to prove my worth to strangers in exchange for a monthly salary of 10,000 yuan. I still did not reply to the last minute. When it was morning, I finished 2 things. I sent my resume to the law firm that Tan Hu introduced. Send the novel's introduction to the editor. 7:30 Tuesday morning. There was a knock on the hotel room door. Jean Changemo stood outside the door, holding a cup of hot soy milk and a piece of donut. It was my favorite restaurant in college, at least a 20-minute drive from the hotel. His voice was a little hoarse, as if he had been up all night. He was here to pick me up and take me home. I leaned against the door, not letting him in, my head hanging low. Sent to kindergarten. He paused, added cat. He temporarily left it at the pet store, will return it when he has time. I didn't listen to Kinthua's further explanation, just asked him to take me to the company that Tan Hugh introduced. After the interview, Tan Hugh and I talked about a lot of things from school. She regretted that I hadn't published any papers during my master's degree. She said I have a talent in this field. Starting over again can also create a piece of my own sky. After 7 years of marriage, this is the first time I have time that truly belongs to me. It was also the first time I truly felt like I was doing something for myself, not just hanging around the kitchen, surrounded by my husband and children. At 7:30 p.m., I pushed open the door. The house was quiet. There was no sound of Dang Dang's footsteps, nor the child's childish voice calling for mom. Dang Dang's kindergarten pickup card was still in the card case. She had not come home yet. I immediately called the caretaker. The first time no one answered. The second time still no one answered. After the 8th call, I saw the news that Song Kaya had posted half an hour ago. In the video, she raised her glass of champagne and smiled widely at the man. Dang, who was standing next to her, bowed his head and said something to her. I heard people teasing her. Professor Ken is about to have a second child? Song Kai-na is bored, don't talk nonsense. Kinthua doesn't deny it. The comments below are even more eye-catching. I heard you two are getting married? Professor Ken treats the Song dynasty so differently, I'm jealous. I took a deep breath, calming my panic and anger. I don't have time to play around with them. When the police got the surveillance video, my hands were shaking so much that I couldn't write down the name. The video showed that at 4:20 p.m., Dang Dang was standing at the entrance of the kindergarten looking around. At 4:30 p.m., she couldn't wait any longer and walked home as usual. 4:45, I stopped at the intersection, hesitated for a moment, then turned around and went the opposite direction. That was the way to the amusement park. The amusement park was abandoned 9:05 p.m. The police broke down the iron door and searched, flashlights shining around the dark haunted house. Dang Dang cowered among the pile of old tattered ghost props. His hair was covered in sweat and his eyes were red and swollen like 2 walnuts. Dang Dang, I ran over in a hurry, my knees hitting the ground hard. He looked up, his eyes blurred, then looked closely and burst into tears. Mom Haina said Dad was going to have a baby with her. Said no one needed me. My voice was broken, I wanted to find Dad. Dad said he would take me to the amusement park. I held my daughter tightly. Her body was cold and trembling violently. Dr. Chow Mei looked at the electrocardiogram. There were no other injuries, she was too scared. Needed to stay in the hospital for observation. She still talked in her sleep, suggested psychological intervention. On the hospital bed, Dang Dang couldn't sleep. Her small hand tightly gripped the corner of my shirt, trembling from time to time. At 12:30 a.m., the hospital room door opened. Kinthiat Max stood at the door, his face covered in wind marks and a little red wine. An brother. Dang Dang was sleeping and started to till the fields. No, Dad doesn't need me. She moved away. Kintay Mac wanted to come closer but I stopped him. Dang Dang screamed in his dream, I don't need a new mother. Kinthuat Max staggered back, knocking over the 4 stand. He stood in the hallway, grabbed her hair and explained it was just a misunderstanding. When Nachi casually said something. He didn't expect the consequences to be so serious. I turned and opened the door to the hospital room. He explained to the judge. The next day, I sorted through all the evidence I had collected over the past few months. Take a deep breath, open Duzen, click on post video. I look straight at the camera, calmly say, hello everyone, my name is Huan Yenin. I use my real name to report my husband, a professor of electronic information department at Jiangnan University, said yes. He committed serious academic fraud, abusing his position and power to have an improper relationship with a student named Tong Yi. Below is the entire evidence. In the video, I present the issues of Kinti Mac in order. 1. Academic fraud. In the thesis published by Kinti Mac, the primary data did not match the original archived records, which clearly had been tampered with. Can T-Mac relied on these fake data to apply for the title of associate professor. Email exchanges between Can T-Mac and students in his lab asked them to adjust the data to match the desired results. 2. Evidence of adultery. Invoice for buying a diamond ring while the marriage was still in effect. The payee was a jewelry store owned by Song Yi-na's close friend, but the invoice was written as scientific research supplies. WeChat conversation between Can Thua-Mac and Song Yi-na. The content included, "Don't come back tonight. Miss me." 3. Most importantly, the harm they caused my daughter included clear written explanations. Finally, I added, "As a mother, I cannot accept that my husband would hurt our daughter for personal gain. Dang Dang is only 5 years old. She should not have to endure these things. I strongly request the school and relevant units to seriously investigate to clear the honor of the academic community, and also give my daughter a satisfactory answer." After 3 hours of posting the video, public opinion quickly became heated. My DoZen account went from a few hundred to over 500,000. The law watched the video over 5 million times. Comments flooded in. The academic world was shaken. The professor's image was about to collapse. "This evidence is too solid. The comparison chart is very clear. Song-Yi, isn't she building up the female lead's image? Now the car has flipped. Someone dug up my background. An excellent graduate of the law department of Jiangnan University, champion of the national moot court competition." For a while, public opinion was divided into two factions. One side scolded Jin Chengma and Song Yi. Academic cheating and adultery. Jin Chengma is truly both terrible and a bastard. Didn't Song Yi post a news article before that hinted that Professor Jin would marry her after the divorce, and now he faked her death? One side won my counterattack. The video owner is too fierce, the logic is clear, the evidence is complete, it's truly textbook level. If she were a lawyer, she would definitely be a ruthless character. I had just put down the phone when Tan Xiao called. "Neem Neem, you're famous, the internet is buzzing about you now." "Yeah, I saw it," I rubbed my temples. She said quickly, "Don't just watch for fun, take advantage of this wave of popularity. You build your own account, broadcast live to promote the law, give legal advice, you can definitely create a big buzz. You are originally a talented law student. Now there is a hot topic, this is a heavenly opportunity." I pondered for a moment. Gently, "I will think about it." 3 days later, the investigation results were announced. The official website of Jiangnan University announced that after investigation, it was confirmed that Professor Jin Chengma had committed academic fraud. From today, his professorship will be revoked and all his scientific research projects will be terminated. The general record is related to academic fraud, improper conduct, and the revocation of the doctoral degree. Even more dramatic, when Jin Chengma was investigated, he revealed the general record to protect himself. "All the data in her thesis was done by me. She herself never participated in the experiment." However, under the family's control, Tong Guya quickly cut off the relationship and even bit back. Today, Jin Chengma often forced me to cooperate with him in fraud, trying to develop an illicit relationship with me. Instead of the sweet love of the past, we now bid each other extremely ugly. The next time I saw Jin Chengma was the day we signed the divorce agreement. He was no longer as sharp as before. He looked at the agreement I had drafted with a deep gaze, his pen as if he wanted to pierce the paper. "Huan Yanan, are you satisfied?" I calmly said, "This is not a matter of whether you are satisfied or not. You and Song Chiya should have paid for your actions a long time ago." He laughed bitterly. "You know, what I hate the most is not that you denounced me, but that you clearly could rely on me to live but insisted on standing up for yourself." I showed him the email from 15 years ago. Maybe he forgot, his previous wish was just a house with a balcony. He looked at the email silently, his fingers trembling. How could he forget? At that time, to save her, I broke 2 ribs. My fingernails were peeling off, blood and sadness mixed together. But I didn't feel any pain, because I thought that as long as I could save her, my life would be worth it. The sunlight shone through the window. I asked softly, now because of Tong's courtesy, because of the reputation of a professor, he even gave up his daughter. His eyes were red. He promised to be quiet, people would change. Even though he was 20 years old, he could die for her. Even though he was 35 years old, he couldn't give up a project for her. Finally, the pen fell, the writing was sharp as a knife. "You're right, I've stopped being that man a long time ago. I've become calculating, pragmatic, even selfish. But what scares me isn't those things, it's that you still remember how good I used to be. I put the agreement away. When I turned around, I heard him say the last sentence, promised to be peaceful. I wished her to be so arrogant forever. Never turn into a rotten person like me. When I left the law office, the early summer wind blew, carrying with it the silk threads of the parasol tree. I touched my face, it was cold and wet. Then I realized I had been crying. It turns out that the most painful thing is not hating him for becoming like this, but that I still remember clearly how good he used to be. When I reached the door of the law office, I had just put the divorce agreement in my bag when my phone rang. The first one was from the Gyeongdu City Education Department. Breaking news, Gyeongdu has lifted the housing restrictions in school areas. The multi-school zoning policy will be implemented today. Homeroom teacher Dang Dang quickly sent the news. Dang Dang's mother just received a notice that our kindergarten will be transferred to Dongtan Primary School. No need to buy a house, just have a household registration in the area. Second is the editor's email. She promised her new novel was a hit for the first time. The initial score was 8.9. What are the plans for the sequel? I snapped back to my phone. I remembered after the past month, the nights after finishing housework, I started staying up late to write. I remembered the afternoon after the law firm rejected me. Remember the rainy night when I found Dang Dang in the abandoned amusement park. Broken things will eventually be reborn in another way. Third is Tan Hu's message. The law firm has agreed. They are willing to provide you with a private office, support you in legal advocacy, and pay for live broadcasting. 8 o'clock tonight, first broadcast, dare? I stopped and looked at the man on the opposite stairs. Answer, dare. The sunlight casts a long, lonely shadow on the marriage counseling sign. We used to think that we had to fight at all costs for housing on campus, child custody, and professorships. It turns out that fate has already decided a price to pay. I turned and walked towards the subway station, listening to the news broadcast on the loudspeakers. Experts said that education equity reform would gradually remove the ties between real estate and education. The wind blew my hair gently, covering the corners of my lips with a slight smile. This world changes so quickly that even regret doesn't have time to set in.